Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Path. Today, I'm super excited to have somebody on that we haven't had in this specific field of, let's say, adventure sports just yet. We've had wingsuit divers, we've had people that have been on the International Space Station. I wouldn't call that a sport, but we've had we've had big wave surfers on, and today we have a climber on. So I'd like to welcome Hazel Findlay onto the podcast. Just a bit of background on Hazel. Hazel's been climbing for nearly 30 years, and she started on sea cliffs in Wales and has since then become a six-time British junior champion. So congratulations. On top of that, Hazel was the first woman to climb a British E9 traditional route, which is E9 trad route, which is a very, very difficult route, by the way. And the first woman to sport climb AC, which is, again, another very, very difficult route. And then also free climb El Capitan, which many people will know, which is over in the States, which is, I was reading up on it before this, and it's also mildly to acutely terrifying, depending on who you're talking to. But to me, it's more acutely terrifying. I'm a bit afraid of heights. Outside of climbing, Hazel's also a speaker and corporate coach. She's founded the Strong Mind to Teach, Strong Mind to Teach mindset, and she also focuses on resilience and fear management. Hazel also runs the Strong Mind podcast and the Strong Mind YouTube channel. Hazel, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. Let's talk a bit before we get into like all the things that you've achieved, etc. By the way, congratulations. It's amazing stuff. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the minute.
Right now.
Right now, so you're talking to me right now, clearly. But are you are you still doing climbing as much as you were at one point? I know you're a new mum and that, so you maybe don't have as much time. Are you more focused on the corporate side of things? Like what are you up to?
So yeah, I'm wearing a lot of different hats at the moment. I am still a professional climber, so I'm 36 now, and I know that if you come from traditional sports, you sort of expect people to retire in their 30s, and you also expect people to not be a competitor. But the way climbing works is that you can climb to quite a high level still later in life, and a lot of sort of the sponsorship deals are more around like how you communicate what you do, teaching, mentorship, storytelling. But yeah, I'm still climbing, and it's definitely something that I prioritize and always will, I think, as much as I can. Even though I'm a new mum, I'm 10 months postpartum, so I would say I'm still recovering from pregnancy and childbirth and that whole thing. But I'm back to climbing at a reasonable level already, which has taken a lot of work. And I also have my business, Strong Mind, which is like mental training and coaching and teaching resources for climbers, mostly based online. And what else am I doing? Yeah, just all that kind of stuff that you mentioned, basically, just keeping it all ticking over, but at much slower rate because now I have a little baby to look after as well.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that as well, by the way. That's the biggest achievement, right? That's the,
Yeah.
but about the training then, like, is the training, because I don't know much about climbing. I only know as much as that I live in Austria. There's plenty of places to climb in Austria. I'm clearly not Austrian, but my daughter's very into it as well. She enjoys climbing. But the training itself, is it just about getting out and actually climbing? Like, do you go, like, is that the main brunt of the training, or are you in the gym, or what does the training regimen look like?
The physical training side of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it's like a mixture of outdoors and indoors climbing. So for people who don't know, you can climb like indoors on artificial walls, and it's like a really good training stimulus. But it doesn't, like, if you're a outdoor climber in the sense that like your goals are outdoors, it doesn't like completely map. So you do want to get time on rock as well. It would kind of like a surfer only using like a wave machine, for example. Like, it's got its benefits, but it's not the same as like being in the ocean and the struggles and the challenges of that. So yeah, you can train indoors, outdoors, but then I also like go to a normal weights gym type place once a week as well. And sort of that's more like for injury prevention more than anything. But yeah, and then you might do little bits and pieces as well. Like climbers do a lot of fingerboarding, where we literally just hang on an edge and strengthen our fingers, because fingers is kind of like one of the most important things to strengthen as climbers.
Let's get into injuries and that. Or how have you had many injuries?
Yeah, I'm really, really injury prone. I'm hypermobile, which is an asset in climbing. Like, it's really good to be flexible, but it also made me more injury prone, especially when I was younger and I didn't have better knowledge around that stuff. So yeah, I had like a really long shoulder injury that was like misdiagnosed several times, and then ended up with a shoulder operation, and then it was still painful after the operation, and it was this huge thing. And then at the moment, I feel like I'm just fighting off injuries constantly. I think just because my body's changed a lot postpartum, but yeah, it's a big deal in climbing, injury prevention.
So when you talk about injury prevention, like what type of things are you doing against injury?
Just strengthening, really. It's
Okay.
like, and I think that climbing is, there's a lot of sort of like pulling and particular types of movement styles, but we don't do sort of like opening, extending motions. So like, you can spot a climber because they're the person with the big shoulders with the really bad posture, that they look kind of hunched.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
doing like press ups, just things that will like open the body up as well. And then like at the moment, like my knees, I've got a bit of a knee thing, so it's like strengthening glutes and quads and hamstrings.
Full body, really, right?
It
Like
really
that's
is,
the
yeah. And that's
yeah.
why it's so hard as well, because it's like, it feels like there's so many parts of you to maintain. Like, it's not like,
Yeah.
if you're a runner, it's like kind of just like your legs, right? You're probably not going to have to like worry about like a finger or a shoulder injury as a runner, right?
Mm.
But it's like every little bit of your body you need to maintain as a climber.
That's it. Yeah, that's the thing, and that's time intensive as well, right? Like to try
Yeah,
to do every muscle group when you're trying
totally.
to. So, and you're just doing it purely just as a injury prevention thing rather than actually like helping you get up a wall, maybe, right?
Yeah, I mean, it helps that too. It does help that too. And, in other phases of my climbing, I'm definitely more in like I'm trying to get stronger type thing. But because you know, I, I'm still breastfeeding and like I'm not getting much sleep, like it's not really the best time in my life to be like, I want to be like peak. So
It's
the
good.
main thing is for me right now is to kind of just keep slowly building on my recovery postpartum, and then also just not get injured, because that's the thing that will set me back the most, is if I have an injury. So yeah.
Yeah, of course, of course. All right, well, let's change lanes slightly. Let's talk about some of the things you've done, right? So let's talk about the one that everybody's going to know, El Capitan, right? And free climbing El Capitan. How long did it take you to do it?
I've done that 4 times now, so it depends which time. Um, I usually around 5 days. And just like for people listening, because people get confused about this all the time, free climbing is not climbing without ropes. It's just climbing using your hands and feet. So free soloing is like what Alex Honnold did, and he's the only person to free solo El Cap, and that's climbing on his own with his hands
Mm-hmm.
and feet, but not using ropes,
Okay.
which is crazy in my mind.
Yes. I was just,
Because I've
I
climbed
fully
the route
agree.
that he's done, so I know how hard it is. So yeah, free climbing, yeah, just using your hands and feet, not using the equipment, kind of like a ladder to pull yourself up is like the alternative. Um, and yes, like the first time was like 5, 6 days, I think.
5, 6, 8. The one that you just mentioned there before the actual free solo climb.
Free
Is that
rider.
the free ride? Yes, sorry, free ride. There was a Netflix documentary about that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Is
called
that the
free
one?
solo. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that gave me sweaty palms when I was watching it.
Yeah. Me too.
So you too. Like, I mean, if you're getting sweaty palms, Jesus. So tell me, like, how is that for you? Because that's like, okay, you've done it. What you say, 4 times?
Yeah, so Free Rider, the one he soloed, is the easiest one I've done. It is the easiest one on that wall, but that wall is so hard to free climb, that you really have to be an elite climber to even just think about trying to climb any of that wall. And then to climb the whole of it using what we call aid, which is when you do pull on the equipment, even that is really hard. Like I've done that in a day. I climbed the nose in a day, but like pulling on the gear, not free climbing. And that it's like, it's 1,000 meters of rock, 1,000 meters of, think how hard it is to just climb a few little meters if it's difficult, right? So then it's just a lot of wall. So to say that that's the easiest one makes it sound makes it sound easy.
You're underselling it. You're
Yeah.
underselling it massively. Jesus. No, so but like, okay, let's talk a little bit about fear for that. So when you're with the first, let's go back to the first time that you did it, because you knew what to expect. Or let me put this a bit differently. Were you more fearful going back into it, or are you more fearful the first time because you knew what to expect the second time, third time?
Yeah, more fearful the first time for sure. And I had a lot of imposter syndrome. Like the route I climbed as well, which is called Golden Gate, that hadn't been climbed by a woman before. And there's some things about climbing that, like, sometimes there's a big gap between the holds that you can use for your hands. And a lot of the grading and how difficult climbs are, they're graded by men who tend to be taller. So like sometimes there's like a bigger unknown going into something as a woman too. And so the first time was much scarier. I had a lot of imposter syndrome, like, okay, should I even be here, kind of thing. And I felt like I was going to let my partner down at the time, and so a lot more fear the first time. But then even the second time, it was a harder route that I climbed, and I had, again, a woman hadn't freed that climb, and just a lot of unknowns. There's always unknowns, and you always know that it's going to probably be one of the hardest things you've ever done every time you step off the ground.
You've mentioned like imposter syndrome a few times there, right? How did you manage to get over that? Because some people just walk away as soon as they get that. Like I've met people that do it, and we all have imposter syndrome. Like if you don't have it, I think you're mental. Typically, right? People that don't get some form of imposter syndrome, especially when they're in high pressure environments or they're in a new high up position in a business or whatever it might be. If they don't have that imposter syndrome, again, I think they're mental. So how did you manage to get over that?
So that specific time, it was a lot of encouragement from my partner, and sort of, what he was saying was, you just have to try and see. So it sounds simple, but like you don't build confidence by thinking something. You build it through taking action. So, if you feel underconfident, you have to take some steps forward in order to start to change that. So and then breaking down the challenge was really important for LCAP, because it's just such an intimidating wall that if you think about achieving that whole goal in one, like if you think of it as one thing that you have to complete, it's just too intimidating. It's too much. And, this is so relatable to other things in life, right? Sometimes, creating a business, or like even just hiring someone, like thinking about the process of hiring someone like in its entirety just feels like a lot. So it's just, so then breaking down into steps. And sometimes it's like in climbing, it's literally like, I'm gonna pack my bag. Like that's all you can think of right now, is like, that's all I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna see where I am. And then I'm gonna put the bag on my back, and I'm going to walk to the base of the wall, and I'm going to step off the ground, and then I'm going to see where I'm at. And sometimes just literally committing just to the next step is like the way to help with something like imposter syndrome, where it's imposter syndrome. Yeah, we probably all get it, but it can make us feel really stuck. And so it's like, what's going to help you feel less stuck?
That's really good advice. It's interesting. I say this often to the team as well. It's like, okay, what's the best way to eat an elephant? Piece by piece.
Totally.
So like it's such a big thing. You're not going to be able to eat it all in one sitting, right? You need to break it down. You need to break down the various parts, whatever. And I also see it with myself, right? When I get overwhelmed, which is normal, right? Everybody gets overwhelmed. We've got a lot of things on the plate, and what I tend to do is to try to help me with that is I make a list of every single little thing that I need to do that day. And even if I've already done it, I'll write it down in the list and I'll start to cross it off.
Yeah.
I'll say, okay, item one done, crossed off. And as my day goes, I start feeling like I'm making real progress. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
sprinting then, you know? And it's only little things. It's the same as what you just said there, like pack your bag. You know, that's
Hmm.
the, which
Yeah.
is a simple thing. You need to do it. You have to follow the process and do it anyway, right? But that's one thing that you can tick off the list. Okay, I focused on doing that and I've done it to the best of my ability, and then move on to the next thing and the next thing
Totally.
and the next thing. So I really love how you've broken that down and just like, okay, do the little things and keep going piece by piece.
Yeah. And I think another thing on top of that is like a lot of people think that you need to have the self belief first. Like, and I think, you read this in sort of like cheesy self help books, don't you? That like, you can't do anything unless you have self belief. But it's like sometimes you can't wait for that. Sometimes, like, the opportunity's there. You're not 100% sure you can do it, but you kind of have to try anyway. And that's how you build self belief and confidence. Like, I totally did not believe that I could do it, but
Mm-hmm.
I just tried, and I tried really, really hard. And I
Yeah.
did do it. And I might not have. And then it's the process of learning through failure as well, and potentially not seeing it as failure if you do fail.
That's interesting. We'll get to that in a minute as well. Like I don't believe that when you go and take on something like that you're ever really ready. Like there's
Hmm.
so many things in life just generally that you see people say, "Oh, I'm not ready for that." For example, big job promotion, right? Taking over a large team, having not managed people before, as an example. You're never going to be ready for it. Are you gonna mess up? 100%. You're definitely going to mess up, but you're always going to mess up somehow in some way in everything, right? There's always going to be some mistakes or failures along the way, as you said, right? But the only real way to really get yourself ready or to get to a place where you're managing to be proficient and doing something well is to jump into it, right? And that
Hmm.
sounds like what you've done there, right? You didn't
Yeah.
have the full self belief, but you said, you know what, I'm gonna give myself the best toolbox to do it by preparing and making sure that I have myself, body and mind and everything ready to go and do my best at it. And then you
Hmm.
manage to get that self belief along the way, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your failures. So like this is something people sometimes shy away from, but you've turned your failures into learnings, right? That's one of the things that you've mentioned a few times, is turning those failures into learnings. First of all, let's talk about some of the failures that you encountered on maybe that one on one of those El Capitan climbs,
Hmm.
and how you've managed to turn it into a learning.
Yeah. So there's one climb. Actually, the last time I was on El Cap, I technically did not manage to free climb it, but it's funny how you in climbing. I mean, it's a bit hard for people to understand because I still got to the top, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you just technically can't say that you can free climb it. Um, And what did I learn? I learned a few things. I would say maybe there were things that like I learned again, but in some ways, like motivation is everything. Like I was not 100% motivated for that climb. Like I was slightly being pulled along by my partner, and I was slightly not in the right emotional headspace for it. Like earlier that year, my dad had died, and in many ways recovering from like the grief of that, and like everything that kind of happened around his death was harder to recover from than having a child, like even just for my body as well, because emotionally we hold so much in our bodies.
Mm.
um so that was part of it. And also kind of just like a lot about letting go of my ego. It's like it was only when I involved my ego that I felt like it was a failure at all, because I'd had this amazing time. I'd done a lot of climbing. I'd got to the top of the wall, but it was just this ego thing of like, well, I can't tell people I've done it. But it's like, well, why is that important? So yeah, there was like little nuance learnings in there. I don't know like whether there was like a massive one. maybe, the main thing is motivation, but I say I kind of had my eyes open with that. Like I knew going into it that this didn't
Mm.
feel quite the same as the other ones. Like the other times I stepped off that wall was like, I'm going to give this everything. Whereas like that time I stepped off the wall and I was like, this is more about kind of having a good time. And I don't feel ready to actually put that kind of pressure on myself at the moment.
It's interesting. That's really interesting. I think the ego thing as well is also a super interesting point there. That you were reflective enough to look at as okay, like why, why does that matter?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, hey, I'm not able to tell anybody that I did this because I didn't free climb it.
Mm-hmm.
And you said at the start of this, you still made it to the top, right? And you still
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed yourself. You still had a good
Mm-hmm.
time, but there was still a part of you being like, oh, I can't be proud of this, maybe, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So I think that's an important lesson as well. Like just generally in life as well. I sometimes I ask myself that sometimes as well, and the ego part, like why, like let's take for example something simple like titles, job titles, or founder titles, things like that. Like why are you do you like why do you actually care about that? That's sometimes the thing. And I've tried to in the past years I've tried to look at it in a way like I actually care more about the work and the outcome than anything about titles or any of that stuff. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's not changing your life day to day, or
No,
your bank statements, not changing anything other than how
ex-
people perceive you potentially, which may have like objective like effects, but probably doesn't.
no, exactly not, because people see the work at the end of it, right? They see like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that person has done that, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore this person is somebody that I see as a thought leader or somebody that knows what they're doing, basically, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
really where it makes sense. But that's really it's an interesting one. Just before we finish up, because I know we're just on time now, just on fear, because we haven't really even covered fear. Like when you're talking about a kilometer of rock, right? 1,000 meters of rock, like, are you scared? Like, if you're
Yeah.
not scared, is that mad? If you're not scared, is that one of those things? Like, do you need to have a certain level of fear there?
Yeah, I mean, this is a big topic, but yeah, I mean, I still get scared climbing something like El Cap, and sometimes on El Cap it can be like that there is sort of objective physical danger. A lot of the time, there isn't. Um, but even when there isn't, it still feels scary to have like 800 meters of air beneath your feet and you're just kind of like dangling there, like, and you're thinking, if my rope snapped, like how many seconds until I hit the ground? But it also that makes it really exciting and fun and cool. And, that's why it's great. So it's not bad. And I mean, how you approach fear, you said before, like, sometimes you're not going to be ready. When it comes to fear, I think that we can easily fall into like these platitudes of like, you've got to push through, or you've got to be scared and just go for it anyway, or like you got to face your fears. But I actually think that like, it's important to be smart when it comes to fear. And this is not just fear with like when there's physical risk, but when there's like social risk or emotional risk or whatever it is that you're scared of, when there's risk involved, or even when there's not, when there's just a risk of having like a really bad time. Again, it's like breaking down the challenge, graduated exposure, trying to aim for that sweet spot where like it feels uncomfortable and like a bit stressful. Like stress is not bad. A lot of the time stress is really helpful. It keeps us alert, it makes us motivated, heightens the senses. But it's like, where's that sweet spot for you? And as soon as it gets that negative valence of like, oh my God, I don't want to be this is horrible, or like after the fact, if you're like, I really don't want to do that again, then that's when you kind of know that you've taken it too far. So like say, it's like public speaking is one of like the most common workplace fears. It's not just about going like to manage your public speaking fear, you would never go and stand in front of an audience of like 10,000 people. No, you build up slowly, right? And you check in with yourself and you see how that was. And if you managed it and you coped, then you increase, the exposure to the thing that's scaring you. So yeah, I think it's important to be smart about these things and to kind of take on the appropriate challenges and break them down.
Your view on life is piece by piece. I love it. It's like it's the same with fear. Don't overdo it. Take it bit by bit. Let's not overcomplicate it. I love it. Hazel, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a really interesting conversation. Where can people find you, Hazel?
So I'm pretty active on Instagram. It's Hazel _Findlay. My business website is strongmindclimbing.com and my personal website is hazel-findlay.com.
We'll make sure we share everything in the description.
Cool.
Thanks so much for coming on, Hazel. It's been great having you.
Thanks a lot.
Sure thing. Guys, this has been another episode of Growth Path. Thanks for tuning in, and see you again next week for more great content. Thanks, Hazel.
Thanks a lot.